I'm here to present a case for art. How can artists help with the climate crisis? One of the leading experts in sustainability and systems analysis, Donella Meadows, said, "Paradigms are the sources of systems. From the shared social agreements about the nature of reality, come system goals and information flows, feedbacks, stocks, flows, and everything else about systems." I think it just means that paradigms, mindsets, worldviews, and beliefs are driving forces of systems. If you cannot change it, it is very difficult to bring forth system change. So then, what are effective ways to bring forth mindset change? Here's another quote from an expert on climate change communication, Anthony Leiserovitz. "The arts are one of the most profound cultural innovations we have to communicate with our experiential processing systems. Art can connect with our analytical brain, but it is particularly great at connecting with the more intuitive parts of ourselves and is one of the most effective ways of engaging us emotionally." So I would argue that the arts is a powerful way to change the mindset of people, to convince, to communicate, and lead to behavior change. Here are just a few historical examples. We all know that in the Renaissance art is one of the catalysts for changing the mindset of a more religious medieval period to a more humanist mindset of Renaissance Europe. In the Philippines, the novels of Jose Rizal sparked a revolution against the Spanish Empire. And one of the more recent example, this documentary film, An Inconvenient Truth, gave us facts about climate change, but also connected with us emotionally in telling us that we need to do something about this problem. But aside from these big examples, a lot of artists are already actually taking action against climate change. So art is already contributing to this movement. I'm Ralph Lumbres. I consider myself an interdisciplinary artist. I'm interested in the interconnections of art in our life and the world we live in. I know that this might be very general, but I'd like to walk you through my journey and the experiences that I have to narrow it down and maybe explain what I mean about this and how I integrated my art practice into this field of environmental education and communication. So I grew up in Bukidnon, in the countryside, playing with nature in the hills, the rivers, in the woods or forests. And I would say that this shaped me a lot and my practice today. My knowledge of art back then is very limited, but at the same time, it is not bound by the conventions that we have today about art, by institutions, by galleries, by museums, theaters, etc. And then I went to high school in Philippine High School for the Arts in Los Baños, Laguna, in Mount Makiling, also in the mountains. So this is a government scholarship. It's a boarding school. And here I had a more idealist view of art and that art should be connected with society and is important for nation building. There was a bit of learning and unlearning when I went to university. Here I was exposed to the art market systems and there was a sense that this is the predominant way of practicing as an artist, or at least making a living out of it. But I still knew that I don't want to take that route of becoming a full-time studio-based artist, doing exhibitions and selling artworks exclusively. So in 2016, I joined a fellowship program by the Japan Foundation Asia Center, where they gather people from diverse backgrounds in Asia to learn about disaster risk reduction, or DRR, environmental education, with the goal to bringing in creativity to this field. So you had artists, designers, educators, researchers, community development workers, and etc. Here I realized that interdisciplinary collaboration was possible, and I knew more ways for artists to participate in DRR and environmental education. So in 2017, as an action plan for this HANDS project fellowship, I created LigtasPad, or Light-Based Participatory Three-Dimensional Mapping. Participatory 3D mapping already exists as a practice, but I wanted to improve it and create alternative methods. This project was also funded by Tuklas Innovation Labs, and I also collaborated with geographers from Philippine Geographical Society. So one way to improve upon this mapping practice was to create an alternative material to styrofoam and paper mache that they use. So I used sawdust and plywood here, and sawdust sculpture is a sculptural technique I learned in art school. So it is light-based because I used light projections to project data onto the map to make it interactive, and also to declutter several data visualizations in the map. I also used the interactivity of light projections to gamify the learning process of the 3D map. The use of light projections was informed by my practice also in shadow play or shadow puppetry. So aside from this, we also used gamification in the facilitated discussions and workshops of this project. So when I did this project, I collaborated with friends, with my wife, and other HANDS fellows. And with them, I also founded an interdisciplinary collective. We called it Projects Artist Community. For this collective, we're interested in creating art-based participatory projects in communities that is focused on the environment. Our next project is ARC project, or ARC, or Art for Resilient Communities. So we implemented this in Philippines, Indonesia, and Thailand, and again was funded by Japan Foundation Asia Center. So the idea of the project is to merge 3 similar community art-based projects from 3 HANDS Project Fellows action plans. So aside from the 3D mapping, we also did participatory photography, or photo voice. So this is the research component, and this informed us in getting the data for the mapping and also for the performances created for the participatory music and instrument building workshops. So the instruments created in this project came from recycled materials. So here's another example of how art-based activities can become useful in education and research. So since I use sawdust sculpture in making the 3D maps, I also use it as a primer activity. So asking the community to create sculptures of their local biodiversity. This one is in Suluan Island in Eastern Samar. It's a very small one barangay island community in the east, which is the first island hit by Typhoon Haiyan. So here we also used the 3D map to illustrate plastic waste management through a facilitated community discussion. Because it's tactile and visual and it's also spatial, I felt that the use of the 3D map here and using some trash were very effective in engaging the community members emotionally. So here's the framework we also created for ARC project. Basically integrating art and community development with integrated risk management. So IRM, as it's also called, is a holistic framework integrating disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, and natural resources management. And in 2020, last year, I joined a research residency program co-organized by UP Open University, University of Plymouth, Cognova Foundation, SEEDS, and other organizations. Collaboratoire is a research residency or research fellowship for cognitive innovation and sustainable development. So we started with a conference that was actually held in UPOU in Los Baños, as you can see in that beautiful photo. Then we went to Siargao for a week for the research residency that was actually just right before the lockdown. So we were quite lucky. We were grouped according to our interests, and I was grouped with the environmental empathy group. The program was very interdisciplinary. We were working with various methodologies, research in the arts, and technology, etc. And the idea is to come up with a research project. I was working with practitioners in philosophy, geography, anthropology, communication, and among other backgrounds. So for this ongoing research project, we came up with the term ecological embodied cognition. The term embodied cognition is the idea that we think not just with our brain but also with our body. And extended embodied cognition expands this to the notion that we think also with the tools, with materials, with the space around us. So for us, we're looking at how environment and other living beings is also part of this thinking process, this cognition. And that's why we called it ecological embodied cognition, or EEC. So we're curious as to how activities based in this principle of EEC can enhance environmental empathy. And again, this is an ongoing project. So if you want to follow us, you can go to ecoembodiment.net. So just a few key points before I end. Climate change is one of our greatest challenges, and I think for us to overcome it, we need collaboration from different perspectives, from diverse backgrounds, I think. And also for artists to realize that there are many ways to participate in this movement. And now more than ever, the term artist or being an artist is being expanded. And there are new ways now more than ever to how to become an artist, how to practice art. On the other hand, I want to challenge institutions, organizations, and even the academe to create more space for interdisciplinary collaborations, to find more ways for artists and other creatives to participate in your projects, which doesn't always mean to hire new artists, designers, etc., but even to bring forth the artists within you, in your workplace, and inject creativity in your projects. Thank you very much. That's the end of my talk. And if you'd like to know more about me or access online links and references for this presentation, please go to this link, bit.ly/artsolveclimate. So thank you very much.